All right, good evening, everybody. Let's call this meeting of the Water Commission to order at 6 p.m. Everyone is, let's go straight to the roll call. Yeah, everybody is here. Let's go to the Pledge of Allegiance, please. All right, that brings us to agenda item number 3, citizen comment period. So this one is for anyone to sign up. No one signed up. Thank you. We'll move on to item 4 then. Items that are for discussion, consideration, and/or action. The first one we have is the approval of the minutes for the September 19th Water Commission regular meeting. So first of all, we'll start off on the right. Any adjustments to the minutes for September 19th on the right? Any on the left? Okay, no adjustments to the minutes there. Then can I have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes for September 19th are approved as written there. Moving right along to item 4B, discussions, reports, and updates. Utility Department monthly activity report. Stephen, please take it away.
Good evening, Water Commissioners. For the month of October, the Utilities Department completed 499 tasks. Edwards Aquifer dropped back down to stage 3 the 1st of November. We pumped out of the Edwards 38.59 acre feet, totaling 238.7 for the year. And we pumped out 51.09 acre feet from the Trinity, totaling 622 acre feet for the year. Currently, our 10-day average, as of today, our 10-day pumping average is currently about 664,000. As of today, we have 128.95 acre feet remaining. 40 days left in the year. We are going to pump out of the Edwards a minimum of 2 acre feet daily, or as demand allows. We can expect to lose at least 25 acre feet from the Edwards during the stage 3 restrictions. So we're looking probably about 25 acre feet remaining at the end of the year, unless we pump more. All required distribution samples passed. Water loss was 3.3%. 1,698 meters were read. Restrictions alerts were down 210 from September. The update on the waterline project, relocation project. On November 2nd, the contractor tied into the relocated main at 2 locations. The 12-inch main in front of Arrowwood and the 8-inch main on Hickory Bend. One more tie-in is still needed by Hickory Bend on 2252. It's a 12-inch main. The 2 tie-ins took about 9 hours to complete. A boil water notice was sent out to residents that were directly affected by hand and by electronic notification. The boil water notice was lifted on November 4th. Residents were pre-notified on October 27th of the tie-in and approximately how long the water would be off. So far, the contractor has installed 1,000 feet of 12-inch water main and currently working at the intersection of FM 2252 and Tonkawa Pass, where there will be 3 tie-ins when it's ready. There was an incident on November 3rd at 6:50 p.m. at the intersection of Hickory Bend and FM 2252 tie-in location, where an old 8-inch valve gasket blew out, and only ones that were affected were 3 businesses on 2252, but since the repair was done live, no boil water notice was issued. Currently, we are investigating the cause of the leak, and we'll have more information later. The contractor also just recently at Tonkawa Pass hit the gas main, where we had to close off a section of Tonkawa Pass for a little while also. We did have a service line hit on Bluebell the other day from the Oakville trencher. We're still looking in to find out what caused that, why that one got hit. That's all I have to report for October.
Awful lot to report for October there. I'm assuming we're going to have some questions. You go ahead and start over on the left. Yeah, awesome. On the right? Kevin?
Don't want to break the trend, so I'll say no.
Well, I only had one quick question about we had the water tie-ins and we had the residents that got all the notices and everything like that. Any feedback from anybody, any good or bad, that happened during that whole process?
There was a few people that got notification electronically that really wasn't really supposed to get it. It might have just been an overextended of the electronic notification, because you have to draw like a geo grid around an area, so it might have not recognized that it was supposed to stay in a specific area. So in the future, we'll probably just outright give specific addresses. That way it doesn't happen again. Unless there's an emergency shutdown of a main break somewhere and we have to get notification out quick, then we'll probably use the geo grid and do it that way. But for anything that we expect to have off, we'll just get exact addresses so it won't happen again.
All right, well, glad that you're paying attention to all that and adjusting your processes as we learn more. Appreciate it. All right, if there's no more questions for Stephen, I'll go ahead and roll into items applicable to the Water Commission discussed at the October and November City Council meetings. I'm not sure if you noticed in Stephen's page 2 of Stephen's report that was out there, but it certainly got noticed in October. We had a very low unaccountable unsold for September out there. And I know we've been working on that as a city for a while there, but really good work. It went up a little bit in September. And Stephen mentioned, though, the water leak that we had in there. That was probably a good accountability for that. Also in the last couple of meetings that we had, I know Councilmember Valdez has talked a couple times about how much water the city is using as a whole. And, quarter to quarter was a little bit higher in the last quarter, but overall from the year, the usage overall is going down year to year. So conservation efforts are going good, and that's a good thing considering the extended drought that we've been in. Also in October, we had the recommendations to reappoint. We had 3 commissioners that are up for reappointment, all were approved. And we got a couple of nice thanks there from Councilmember Bauer and the mayor. And you can check out the film if you hadn't seen that already. The last thing I think to bring up there is about I think we covered it already, about the detail and the work on 2252. Stephen covered that. You can also go in there and you can see the engineer reports. Samuel went through a pretty good detail, especially in October. He spent a long time talking about that. If you haven't seen that video, I think it's around the 29-minute point, if I remember right. Okay, any questions for me on the last couple of city council meetings? Anything on the left? All right. Ms. Kane, anything to add? Mr. Mayor, anything? All right. Thank you. That brings us to 4B, number 3, update on the water rate structure. And is that you, Nancy? Great.
Okay, now I'm on. Okay, over the past couple of water rate process determining our water rates, there's been into our budgeting process. Normally, this time of year, we would be approaching the Water Commission about the water rates for recommendation to council. What we are planning on doing, we don't have a water rate recommendation because that would not go into effect until right about the first of the year. And with moving that process into our budgeting process annually, which occurs during the summer months, we would then be implementing another rate increase, possibly the beginning of the new fiscal year. So with that short time period, it would have had a potential of customers seeing 2 water rate increases. So we are not bringing a water rate increase at this time to the Water Commission. It will be implemented into our budgeting process. So during the summer months, we will start that process and bring forward water rate recommendation for implementation at the beginning of the new fiscal year, which is October 1st.
I'd like to start off and ask a quick question, if y'all don't mind. So I know there's been a lot of inflation. There's a lot of prices have been going up, and we're sort of delaying this upgrade. I'm assuming that we probably are going to have a corresponding raise in water rates at some point here, and consumption has been going down. So it seems like revenue is going down and costs are going up. Are we concerned about reserves or anything like that by delaying this decision?
Not for the short period of time that we would be delaying it. We're okay, we're doing well. We will be fine. And we will examine both the decrease in water usage versus the inflationary costs that the water company is incurring, and evaluate those both within that water rate structure and recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Are there any
welcome.
questions from the commissioners on the left? On the right?
Just want to say thank you. I know we had several interim discussions, and I very much appreciate the effort to try to incorporate it in with the staff process. I think that'll pay dividends in the long run.
Thank you.
All right, so that was just a update there. No further questions. So we will go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, 4C, number 1. Or 4C recommendations. Number 1, we have a request for appeal on a water loss adjustment denial for 21916 Parkview Drive for the billing period of July 21st, 2023 to August 23rd, 2023. So there were a couple of items in this. There's plenty of information in your packet about this, and there's an additional letter that was sent out from city staff. And first of all, I want to make sure that everyone has seen all of the information, including the additional letter. I see Dr. Carmichael has it out. Are we good on the right? Also the additional letter. Okay, great. So when we look at this, well, Stephen, I'll let you go ahead if you want to throw it in there, and then maybe I'll give a summary after you're done. But over to you, sir.
Okay, I'm just going to kind of briefly read from the letter, the events that brought up to this. The water meter data for 21916 Parkview shows that a leak started on July 20th, 2023. The leak stopped for about an hour on August 2nd, 2023 at 7 a.m. The leak stopped again on August 7th, 2023 at 7 a.m. and started again on August 8th, 2023 at 7 p.m. On August 24th, 2023, Utility Department employee Dwayne Stognigo was alerted through the AMI system that a leak was present at 21916 Parkview. The homeowners were out of town, so a neighbor contacted them. Neighbor contacted them, informing them of a leak. Since the neighbor could not check inside for the leak, the owners instructed Dwayne to turn off the water at the meter at 4 p.m. On August 24th, 2023, at 8 p.m., the water started running again and stopped again on August 25th, 2023. At 10 a.m., and stayed off up until August 26, 2023, when the on-call employee Manuel Troncoso was sent out there to their property to help them with checking their meter and reading it for possible leaks. Mr. Troncoso said that the meter was showing a leak and that he continued to help them diagnose the cause. A water softener was malfunctioning in their upstairs portion of the house, and they proceeded to bypass the unit and the leak stopped. When reviewing the data from the meter, I found that the leak continuous flow started on July 20th and stopped and started several times until August 26, 2023, when normal usage resumed. On September 14th, 2023, I contacted the homeowner by emailing him and letting him know that I was reviewing their request for a leak adjustment and wanted to know if any repairs had been made. They replied that the repairs will be made later. I contacted them wanting to know if I could get a pressure read from their house to determine if that could be a factor why the softener failed. Their pressure was 80 psi within the proper pressure range. I contacted the homeowner by email on October 18th, notifying that I could not proceed with the processing leak adjustment because there has not been any repairs done to the water softener other than bypassing it so it would not leak. I attached a section of Ordinance 54, Section 1607C 6.2 as a reference and notified them that they could request their case be reviewed by the Water Commission if they had disagreed with why I didn't proceed with the adjustment request. They replied on November 2nd that they would like the Water Commission to review their case. The homeowner believes that they are eligible for an adjustment because they feel that they have corrected the problem by bypassing and turning off the water softener. If it were to be approved, they would get a credit of $455.70.
You're looking for page 28. Yeah, there you go. If you could scroll down just a little bit more. Keep going. We're looking at number 6 and 7, if you can bring those up on the page. All right, Stephen, am I correct in saying here that your decision was based on what we're looking at right here? This is out of Ordinance 54, right off the website, item 6.2. That's what you were talking about. The water loss adjustments will only be considered qualified if water loss is repaired or corrected.
Correct.
Okay. Great. So there's the reference for y'all. Y'all can skim that real quick. And if there's any questions for Stephen based on the information you just gave, this is the time. So any questions on the right?
So just looking through, first question, all leak request materials are submitted in a timely manner to start the process?
Yes.
And so all that documentation is present, and they have, by the ordinance, up to 180 days before it's considered not timely. Is that your understanding? They have up to 180 days total. Like in the event that nothing is done right now, the clock is still running. They're not in imminent danger of running out of eligibility.
Correct.
Okay. I'll hold my other question for right now.
A couple of questions. I see on some backup information on 722 and 821, the leak, the leak info code was active, outbound, no answer. Is there a reason for that? Is this, do we know if this customer is logged into the portal and gets notifications?
So if they did have a login and they may have left the phone number blank, it could default to no phone number, but if it says no answer, then there's an actual phone number that it's calling and it just didn't answer.
Okay. Would this then have also defaulted to the water bill information to send additional information? I guess where I'm going is this went on for a long period of time. some days fairly continuously. There wasn't any, the system sent out requests. Is there any reason why a connection wasn't made that we know of?
Not that I recall.
Okay.
Stephen, I don't know if you remember what the notifications, or if the gentleman answered that question, whether they got the notification.
Okay. That's my only question.
Questions on the left?
Did they ever, the customer ever notify you that the system was actually repaired versus just bypassed?
I believe it's just bypassed.
No questions, but I do commend you for going out and checking the pressure in the house. I think that's one of the issues we discussed last time, and we need to get the word out on the pressure relief valves.
All right, if there's no more questions for Stephen there, I think my understanding from reading this, and happy to hear any feedback from any of the commissioners that are here, is the main question that we have is whether the 6.2, the water loss, is repaired. I think, if I remember correctly, the statement there was that the customers consider bypassed being repaired, essentially,
Yes,
and that's the basis of the appeal.
yes.
Okay. So that's really the main question to us right now on whether if the bypassing of the water softener can be considered a repair. And happy to any discussion on this right now, or any thoughts, starting over on the right.
Based on the way the ordinance is written, it's repaired or corrected. So my first comment is it's not necessary to hire somebody to do it, but they do have to make a formal statement that there was a correction. So I think that word needs to be out. So we've taken in the past notarized statements, or even just statement by the homeowner that this is the steps that I took to fix the problem. So I don't think that's an issue. However, in the past, things like turning off your irrigation controller or bypassing water softeners has not been sufficient to be repaired or corrected. If they want to not use the water softener, they could cap it or take some other more permanent action, but typically bypassing is not, it's temporary. It's just like if I have a water leak and I go out and shut off at my main. I temporarily stop the leak from happening, but I haven't fixed the cause of the leak. That said, the reason I asked my question in the first place is they could still have it repaired or capped or take some other action. They still have time to continue this adjustment process. So in my opinion, it's premature for an appeal. They can still take action to correct the problem. So I think it may not be necessary at this point, but I don't recall any previous cases where some similar action was considered sufficient to repair and correct. If they want to, I think rather than an appeal, it'd be more like a variance, but that's my thoughts right now. I understand the homeowner's not here, so I don't know any other questions, but I would encourage them to continue and to keep filing it and pursue it further, but as of right now, I'm not sure that it meets the criteria in the ordinance, my interpretation.
I concur with that, that it's not eligible at this time, but a repair needs to be done, and then we should consider it at that point. I'm also concerned that the lapse time of this thing running at about 160 gallons an hour is right in the sweet spot of what our system should catch, communicate, and it appears to have done that. But as in other ones recently, the link isn't being made with the customer to act more appropriately. So as a result, the system lost water that I don't think it should, given the capabilities of the system. I don't know if there's anything more to be investigated there, but it just adds impetus to this issue of education. And I understand the confidentiality of not forcing people to sign up to the portal, but this is a perfect example of people being notified with current and correct information, and their bill, whether there's an adjustment or not, would be substantially less. That's all I've got.
I'm left.
No, I concur with your evaluation in light of the rules.
Yeah, I think from my perspective also that, I'm not sure we've ever seen this scenario before, but this is very much like a similar things that we've had in the past about irrigation systems. And I certainly agree with your assessment on there. I would, though, I think we are, ultimately, I think we are not going to take action on this, but I was wondering if we can have, if we could follow up with the owners and talk to them and say, hey, please, I think they're eligible for a leak adjustment if they would just go in and make a correction here, whether capping off the water softener, I think is a good idea there if they don't want to replace that, or some other type of action so that they can come back in a timely manner and get some relief on this water leak, an adjustment to their bill.
Yeah, I mean, but it was clear they had a leak. It was clear that it stopped. So I'm as soon as they get it fixed, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with giving one.
It's good. I mean, we want to help them and we want to make sure they know that, so.
Now, I would agree that turning it off isn't the same as isolating it and capping it off as a correction.
So do we need to take any action on this? Any formal action on this? We're not going to act on this recommendation.
You're not going to do a recommendation? Is that?
Okay, what would the recommendation be? That we're not going to approve the appeal? Is that what we're looking for? Do we need a motion and everything for it?
That would be a recommendation.
Okay.
They could always come back and ask to, if they make the repairs, then come back and ask for a further consideration.
All right, so,
Is there a way to, I'm not comfortable with, well, I guess I would, but I don't think totally rejecting it. I do like Judge Judy does, send it back without prejudice, so it can be refiled or whatever. If we had a motion to that, to tell them to reconsider after corrections.
So I think, oops, sorry.
Chairman Mueller, you could table this item and direct staff to make contact with the individual and explain what their option could be. For future consideration.
So I move that we table this recommendation, or table this action on appeal for future meeting, and in the meantime, staff reaches out to explain the requirements and that they still retain eligibility for the time period in the ordinance.
Does it need a second?
I don't think we need a motion to table something. We do? Okay. So good. So can you put that in the form of a motion, please, and then we can have a discussion over it?
Yes, I move that we table this action, and in addition, that the staff reach out to the customer and explain the basis and that they are still eligible for future leak adjustment.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to table this request for appeal and to get back with the customer and explain the process and encourage them to keep moving forward in the process. Any discussion, starting on the left?
I would include in that they don't require the bill or certification from a plumber if they want to isolate it.
Any questions or any other discussion?
Trying to locate the verbiage in the ordinance that talked about the documentation process. That was what- and
It's, yeah, if you scroll up a little bit. A little bit more, please, because I think so if you look in here, under C, if you see in C there, you can look down, it talks about submit the request form in the middle of C, Appendix F, with supporting documentation within 90 days to the Water Department. And then a little bit later, I think it's in number 3, it talks about if there's additional questions, they have 45 days. So if they lack sufficient information, then they have an additional 45 days there. So they've already submitted 45 days. So we can go back to them and tell them, and then they get another 45 days for this. We certainly have at least another meeting or so. Is that what the question was that we were talking about? Are we good now?
Somewhere in there, there's documentation for the repair that's supposed to be submitted. It might be on the form itself. But the question was where to point to the fact that they don't have to have a certified, correction by a plumber, but they do need some sort of documentation of the corrective action. We were trying to find that in there. But the staff can find that when they discuss it.
It's in Appendix F? Okay. Okay, so we have a recommendation and a second there. And I know we said we're going to recommend a table of the appeal and directing the city staff to discuss multiple items with the homeowner, and I think we got all of those, talking about the process and recommendations to keep filing, and the part of that in there being they don't need a plumber. So the recommendation is to table the appeal and have the city staff talk to the customer. And we have a recommendation and a second on that. Is there any other further discussion? All right. All in favor then, please say aye. Any opposed? All right. I was babbling a lot there. Did the staff get everything on that recommendation? Are we good? Great. All right, that closes item C1. That moves us to item C2. This is on ordinance 61. And we have 3 actions under this, or 3 items to review and make recommendations regarding the requests. The first one is going to be C2IA, a variance to use city water for future construction of a pool at 20103 Regency Run, Garden Ridge, Texas. So we have in your packets, you'll see that we have the request out there. And in case you're wondering, the quick reminder on ordinance number 61. And we are in stage 3. So if you go back to the restrictions on stage 3, looks like it's the 2. I'm sorry, stage 2. Restrictions there, that's on page 9, and the item that we are talking about there is item number 8. And it talks about the proof that water for the construction of filling the pool will be brought in from a water source outside of the city. So that's the variance we have in question. You saw the justification from the homeowner that is on there. And do we have anything from the city staff, any summary or anything that we need to be brought up from either from Stephen or Nancy on this one? Nothing? Okay. So the first volume I'm going to start with here is, sorry, Vice Chair, do you remember have we ever had this situation before? Is there a precedent for this at all? You've been around the longest, that's why I'm asking, because I do not remember one from my time on commission.
We've never had a variance request for using city water during stage 2 to fill the swimming pool and not bringing it in from an outside contractor.
Okay.
This be the first.
Okay. That was my first question. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and open this up here for any discussion, starting on the left. We go through.
I have issues as far as you have stated, if you want a new pool, you gotta bring your own water in. I'm not comfortable about trying to justify, well, we're saving so much water, so I should be able to take city water instead, even though that was part of the permit when they applied for it. So again, I'm not comfortable with trying to circumvent the system.
Dr. Carmichael?
Well, I'm going to admit I got lost in this justification a couple of times. I appreciate all the verbiage. And I couldn't quite put things together. I mean, the part of the water savings is because some of what would be grass area is going to be taken up by a hard surface pool, and so you won't be watering that. Part of it is a redesign of the aerobic septic system, which I think is a good idea. I don't disagree with that, but again, I'm not comfortable with the justification of trying to, again, circumvent the requirement that if you want a pool, that you need to bring in a water source during stage 2.
So if we have questions on the sheet there, we need something explained. I know the homeowner is in the audience, so can we bring them forward and ask them further questions if we need clarification? Hold on. Do you want to ask the homeowner any clarification on what's going on there?
Maybe another explanation might help of what I don't know who DAD Services is or their qualifications in water management. And I don't see a seal on, okay, there's one barely legible, but I don't know if that had anything to do with the justification or just the drawing the blueprint of the blue line of the swimming pool proposed location.
So I'll go ahead. Mr. Bates, if you want to come up and talk a bit, as long as you're not going to read your 5 pages that you sent us, you're good. If you want to explain this a little bit, and if I think as I'm looking at this, the plot that's on there later on in the package, I think that is the redesign of your aerobic septic system, is what that looks like to me. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Thank you for letting me come up and speak. And to the Water Commission, distinguished members, thank you also. To Public Works, Dwayne especially, he's been a help to me over the years. We had a water leak out front. Fantastic guy, very helpful, kind, awesome to have him a part of the city Garden Ridge. Forgive me for being detailed and potentially getting some members lost. I think that I have a physics background and I like to have explanation. I like to have reason for why folks have a perspective. Caveat, all variables are not considered. I tried to include as many variables as possible that relate to the variance. To catch everyone up to speed, because this is a work in progress, currently the diagram that you see up on the wall is the final product of our aerobic septic system sprinkler head relocate. The color is a little tough to distinguish, but the true black dots on the diagram, front of the home, bottom of the screen, there are 5 of them. And those 5 septic sprayers have replaced 7 previous potable water sprayers noted there in blue, the bottom right screen, blue and red. Under drought reduction measure stage 2, present day, present watering permissions, that septic system relocate is saving the city of Garden Ridge, if no actions are taken from anyone on this board and the city council, the city is saving 29,000 gallons plus per year. Under normal operations or non-restricted use, that triples. And that's again under permissive spraying. The amount of water that's being requested for the type of pool planned ironically equates to that amount. Just a reminder, the number of months that have been considered is not a full year of watering, it is 9 months, because that's about how I typically operate and irrigate the front yard. Try to shut it off. I actually learned to shut it off after our freeze when we had things break and cost me some money. Although this looks simple, there are many choices to where you can relocate your sprinkler system. We had to hire an engineer, and we did. Paid about $1,000 for the product. And you would think that you just drop the money and you get the product that you want, but no. There was about 7 to 8 iterations of what you see on the screen in order to get that final product. It took a lot of effort from me to provide input to the engineering firm noted in the description in order to get that precise area completely covered using the type of sprinkler heads that we're permitted to use in Comal County. The septic system relocate could have been to other areas of the yard where there are no sprinkler heads. So where we decided to place it and took effort and calculations on the residents' behalf, we're able to get it where it is and replace those 7 PGPs and then those adjustable nozzles. So as we're planning to get a pool for the rear left section of the home or the southwest corner of the property, now that those sprinkler heads for the septic system have been relocated, we use that area. So if a pool doesn't go in there, the plan is to have about 400 PGPs to spray that area, which under stage 2 conditions would use about 15,000 gallons a year under stage 2. If it went to stage or no restrictions, it would triple that use. Now, there is argument about, okay, a pool uses water, evaporation, that kind of thing. That's not really included in the variance request because it's not included necessarily in the drought restrictions. But there's a lot of different ways that you could go with that. I want to note that as I looked into bringing water in, having it shipped in, and the associated costs with it, it's not just dollars and cents, but there's also a safety risk and pollution, if you will, related to it also. Worst case, well, I'll go with best case scenario, best case under stage 2 conditions, the water would be pulled from Canyon Lake. Ironically, Canyon Lake, from what I understand, doesn't completely, but it does feed the Trinity aquifer in addition to the city of New Braunfels. So portions of that lake water would go through the ground and eventually be pulled up through a well and pumped to the house. If the water is going to be shipped in for the amount of water that we're looking at, it would take about 6 semi-truckloads. They can hold a maximum of 6,000 gallons, that's about 45,000 pounds of water, 6 trips. So that's a semi on the highway for about 15 hours, 5 miles per gallon of diesel. And then some idling involved, you're looking at about, 190 gallons of diesel fuel. The gentleman that I spoke to, and I tried to get as much detail out of him over the phone without getting a contract written, if he didn't pull from Canyon Lake, he would pull from another source. It's about an hour away. I think that might be in the northwest direction. He didn't tell us what the source was. But even still, that's going to add more hours, from my estimation, about another 7 to 10 hours of trip time, maybe about another 90 gallons of diesel fuel in order to have that water shipped here. For the most part, all that travel would be on Comal County roads. Quick numbers in there, a semi traveling on the highway at about 60 miles an hour has quite a bit of kinetic energy, as you can imagine what it would do to a car on the road, motorcycle, and what have you. I equate it to 6.5 sticks of dynamite. I never set off a stick of dynamite, but I know that one stick does a pretty good job from what I've seen on TV, if you will. So experiencing just the potential safety risk of driving to Danville Middle School and taking my kids there and my wife too, we pass a lot of semis on the highway, and that's certainly a concern for us on that short travel, let alone for that semi that would pass by likely the high school and also the elementary school next door to us. I probably spoke about it as long as the pages that I have, but I hopefully I can clarify any detail or ambiguity in what's been presented.
Are there any questions, any more questions for the homeowner on the right?
Why do we start over here?
I was over there. That's what got him up here.
That's okay. Did I hear correctly, the pool's about 36,000 gallons? Is that,
No, sir, it's about 30,000 gallons, just under, yes, sir.
all right. And obviously you don't have a building permit yet. That's why you're here. How long has this process been underway?
Some consideration to relocate about 2 years ago, taking more progressive action about the last 6 to 8 months. And it's been a full part-time job, if you will, in order to get to this resolution. So very surprised. If anybody has any questions on the process, I'd be more than happy to give them tidbits on how to maybe make it happen.
Should the city council grant a variance at their next meeting, when would you be looking at starting the construction of the pool?
Ideally, within this month, hopefully, my wife won't hold it to me, but within this month or the month of December. And I say that because, I get pressure to have things done. So, but ideally, we'd like to make things, basically sign a contract to have a pool produced, and it would probably be completed by May is what we're hoping. So those are all guesstimates, but it would take about 4 months to construct a pool that we're looking at.
All right, so the reason for my line of questioning is under the ordinance, the way the words are written, it's, the Water Commission shall recommend to City Council a variance from these regulations when due to special considerations and undue hardship will result from requiring compliance. So with that wording, I'm not sure that we have the leeway to consider water use avoidance through irrigation. So I'm just wondering, first of all, where in this process is the undue hardship that you and your family are experiencing if you had to truck water in?
Well, I guess that could be looked at in a couple different ways. The water mitigation for a potential pool is already taking place. We're close to 3 weeks into it now of water savings. The undue hardship would certainly be the additional cost. Forgive me if I didn't mention it, but at the lower cost end to ship in to ship in water would be about $4,000. The extensive drive option would be closer, it's $8,500, $9,000 in order for that to happen. To me, that just appears frivolous. We go to SeaWorld, we go to Six Flags, water is sold in bottles. I don't buy it there. It's against my principle to pay $5 or so for a bottle of water. I will do it if my child needs it or if I need it, but it's go use the water fountain. So, the undue hardship of, well, I see that I'm not responsible for the drought conditions that are currently taking place. This isn't a cookie cutter solution for every resident of Garden Ridge. We could have had our our OSF sprinkler heads relocated to a different part of the yard. So if you're looking at the diagram that's on the screen to the right-hand side or back right corner, where there are no sprinkler heads back there, potable water sprinkler heads. So we deliberately had it to replace the potable water spray out front of our yard. Not every property in Garden Ridge is maybe able to do that and or would do that because of their preference of where the sprayers would be and how they use their land.
I think that'll do for my questions at the moment. I reserve the right to ask some more.
How long has the relocated sprinkler system been in place then?
Since the 3rd of November, that was a day that it was complete.
Okay.
It was probably 3 days ago that we had the license to operate put into the Comal County system. So they had to install, run it, cover it all appropriately, and then have it checked by health inspector.
So in terms of actual data, you're really at the early stages of this. What you presented are calculations, which I've followed. I read this.
Yes, sir.
But the actual data that would say this is what the savings are, it's premature to say that at this point, that that's a certainty.
Yes, sir. I mean, just like I'm considering the wise use of our funds and our family in getting a pool or not, I considered looking at the use of these 100 PGPs. And I think I left the sources, the links to the sources, and it basically details the gallons per minute use that the sprinkler heads spray. And I used the time that I run the sprinkler heads with my sprinkler system and came up with those numbers. I thought it was somewhat ironic that I came up with 29,232 gallons per year when we're looking at about 30,000 gallons to use our pool. And that's under the 9 months. That's not looking at a full year, 12 months use.
Okay, yeah, I think I follow that. I think my point is that a lot of this is predicated on a design and that it's going to operate as intended and that it's going to give you the results that you want in your yard. And that's too early to tell at this point.
To a certain extent, sir, yes, I agree, and I somewhat disagree with the assessment. I mean, even under a perfect system, there's going to be variations in weather, variations in how you cut your grass, whether we go on vacation or not. Yeah, I think I provided my water bill in the submission, but you can see that in June, this water bill is significantly reduced. That's because we went away for 2 weeks. So.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other
Yes, sir.
questions.
Any other questions for Mr. Bates?
Yes, one on the drawing water from Canyon Lake. Did you consider any other water sources? I mean, isn't it, what is it?
Well, sir, I
Jim,
don't-
Green Valley Water? Chairman Mueller? Do you recall the Green Valley? They're the ones who, I believe that's the water company that provides most of the cities in this area. They pipe
Yeah, I'm
the
not
water in.
100% sure.
Yeah, well, I think the article I had. So did you consider any other sources closer by?
I don't know, sir, if there's any other sources like the initial body of water that it would be drawn from in order to provide for the filling of the pool. From my understanding, where the Trinity and Edwards Aquifer are, that it would still be somewhat related to that origin of source. What we did is we have about 6 pool contractors that we're speaking with, one that we're more or less looking to go with. We figure they're looking out for us in order to make this happen. They gave us a recommendation of the gentleman's numbers that I provided in the estimate in order to have water shipped in. So our assumption is that that's probably one of the better options. He also comes with recommendations through them, so.
Yeah, but we do have major water companies that ship water in from East Texas, West Texas to this area. So I don't know if, they may not be as cost efficient, but the water wouldn't come from the Trinity or from Canyon Lake or that distance, is my only concern. And then I'm also agree with prior comments about we're in early stages here as far as trying to determine what's appropriate. And the other question I would have, and I'm not, yes, from Mr. Bates, I'm sorry,
Okay.
because I'm not familiar with the aerobic systems, but is there a minimum distance you have to be from the street or another neighbor? Or
Yes, there's multiple standoff
Yes, sir.
distance in there from the street, from property lines, from any other, from your pool, from your house. There's multiple standoff distances that are in there. That's why he has to have it plotted, has to have the plot approved.
There would probably be more coverage of potable water sources, but due to the restrictions, we had to kind of tighten in the rectangle, if you will, of spray. But I would have it spread out more for my best interest, but I couldn't do that.
That's all.
Just questions for Mr. Bates right now. We don't even make him stand up here the whole time. You have anything for him? Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Stone.
I don't have anything right now.
Okay. So when we look at this, as we go ahead and consider this, what we are looking at, as Commissioner Harshberger pointed out, Vice Chair pointed out, on page 7 there, you can see section C, when variance may be granted. And this talks about to ensure that first of all, the variance has to be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this ordinance. And then we talked about undue hardship will result from requiring compliance. So those are your two tests, if you will, that we are applying to this situation. If anyone would like to talk about those two factors and where they stand on that, we've already heard from Vice Chair. If anyone else wants to weigh in on that subject, this would be a good time. And then we can move forward to any recommendations after discussing the test that we are going for. On the left there, Commissioner Stone. Right back at you. See what happens when you don't have a comment?
As far as the undue hardship, I really don't see the justification in that portion for the variance. Again, that they're walking in, knowing what the requirements are, trying to find different avenues to basically avoid them, or to get around the ordinance. So I'm not comfortable with how the process is going, what the request is for.
Dr. Carmichael, anything on our?
Yeah, well, first I really laud the efforts gone through to show the water savings by redesigning your spray system for aerobic system, and I think the homeowner will benefit from those cost savings. But I don't see where the variance in the rules allows us to grant a variance for that.
All right. Vice Chair, anything else?
Yeah, I'll just run through the argument one more time, because I want to be on record. Two things in particular. I agree with Dr. Carmichael, Commissioner Carmichael, that I laud you for the effort, for the clear presentation, and for being concerned about saving water. I do agree it'll provide you benefits in the future. And I think that what you have provided does meet part of the ordinance stuff. In other words, I'm convinced that granting a variance would not result in harm to other residents, and in fact, there's evidence that it would be a net benefit in that regard. Having said that, the second thing I want to be on record for is I am not a big fan of this portion of the drought reduction ordinance. I don't really see the connection here between trucking water in for your pool and drought reduction. And the reason I say that is the ordinance restriction is the issuance of a building permit, and the time from issuing the building permit to actually filling the pool can be months. We might be in completely different drought stages at the time that it actually comes to fill the pool. So I don't think this meets the intent of the regulation to start with. So I have some problems there. But having said that, you know, the variance requires that it is in harmony with the general purpose. It requires that it does not violate the intent of the regulations, and the regulations clearly state that under stage 1 and stage 2, you have to bring in water. So that condition is not met. And then granting variance in harmony with spirit and purpose of the regulations, you could argue, but that the hardship is in no way the result of the applicant's own actions. I don't hear a compelling case that there is an undue hardship any more than any other similarly situated resident who wants to build a pool. I would offer that a potential way forward would be to recraft the variance in a more specific term, such as if a building permit were to be granted, we would work the timing out with the public works folks to limit the duration or time period in which filling occurs so that it doesn't result in excess drawdown of the pumping capacity. I mean, I think there are things that could be done, but I don't see them here yet. So with that said, I mean, I think that's my argument. I wish in my heart that we could say yes, because I think it does cause burden to the consumer, to the customer, without having significant benefit to our drought reduction plan. But as written, and that's what we have to go by, what is the ordinance today? I just don't see that we can make that case to City Council. I don't think they would approve it. So those are my comments.
Thanks, Vice Chair, and I think I'll pile in there also. I appreciate all the efforts that you are doing in water conservation and redesigning your system and everything like that. I think that's really great work, and wish we had some more of that going on and people being that minded. But I also have a problem with the way things are written and the undue hardship, and I don't think we've met that litmus for the undue hardship, from my opinion, there. So thank you, everybody, for your comments there. I think we are probably close to making a recommendation here. And if anybody would like to send me a motion for a recommendation on this.
All right, I had to do the last one, but I make a motion that we recommend to City Council that the request for variance for the stage drought reduction, afraid I don't have the address right in front of me, for our customer's location be denied at this point, but with the option to obviously reappeal with further information. Probably too wordy.
I don't think we need to make that recommendation for council. This is our action on this for the variance right at this point, correct? It goes to council straight from us. See, you know better than I do. Got it. Recommendation for, so you're I'm going to read this back to you to make sure I got this right, Vice Chair. Your motion is to send a recommendation to City Council for disapproval of the variance to use city water for future construction of a pool at 20103 Regency Run, Garden Ridge, Texas.
So that's the essence of it, not to read it back, I'm a little uncomfortable with the language. The recommendation would be that the city council not approve the variance. I don't think we're here in a position to deny anything, but that the city council not approve the application for variance to ordinance 6108-2022 on behalf of the resident at 20103 Regency Run.
Got it. Recommendation, City Council not approve. All right, so we have a recommendation. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a recommendation and a second. Any discussion? Bill, anything? Any discussion on the right? Okay. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, unanimously, the motion is unanimously approved. All right, so that brings us to recommendation C2IB. Variance to Stage 2 water restrictions for 8922 Comanche Path, Garden Ridge, Texas. So if you look in your packets, thank you, it's called up on your screens there. Well, we have a request for a variance again to ordinance 61, and this is for replacement of a lawn in order for them to water, allowing 3 days a week irrigation to ensure the establishment of the newly installed lawn, I think, or it says landscaping. Yeah, it says for the new landscaping, but as you see there, the paragraph 3, it's, the lawn has been replaced with drought-resistant landscaping. Got it. Okay. All right, I think we're back to where we were before when we were talking about those items, the required items for us to issue a variance. So we'll go ahead and start over on the left this time for any discussion on this. And where we think any comments on where you think we stand on these items? Commissioner Stone, if you'd like to go first.
You're talking one who's got a dead yard? Well, it's a bad time to put a yard in, especially with the drought. You can always hand water. I don't know what size the yards are. I think it would set a bad precedence if people say, well, I'll just put a yard in, I'll get a variance. We've been dealing with this drought now for quite a long time, and the yards around here have show signs accordingly. So I don't feel comfortable about approving it for watering 3 times a week. You still got the 1 time a week, and you always do it the hand one. It's a pain, but it was there for a reason.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Carmichael?
Not that I'm not sympathetic, and I also have a dead yard, front and back. And back when I had a ranch, I had dead grass too, because the volunteers are. Anyhow, I would like more definition on what is a drought-resistant yard. I know we have a very active Master Gardeners Society in Comal County, as well as Bexar County and all around. I would like to, before I would even consider this, I'd like to have something more than a few words that say drought-resistant yard. I'd like to know if you're talking buffalo grass or what type of vegetation, native vegetation preferably, in this situation. So I don't think this is ripe yet, and at this point, I don't think I can support it without more definition.
Would you, are the homeowners present for 8922 Comanche Path? Yep. You want to ask them? Would you like for them to clarify?
I haven't seen anything in the request, so it'd be nice to know if Master Gardener's been consulted.
Sure. Come on up, please. If you could come on up and explain, give us a little more detail on the drought-resistant landscaping that was installed, please.
Unfortunately, there's been several hybrids that have come out the past few years. We found one probably was established a year ago. It's called Tiff Tuff. It's a St. Augustine blend. It's a Bermuda type grass that uses probably a third, if not a fifth, of the water that was used by what was planted by the contractors here in this neighborhood. So we said, okay, because our entire front yard, western front yard, was dead. We couldn't do anything with it but watch the dirt go down the driveway. So we said, okay, fine. We've got to do something. Well, the weather was finally coming up nice. We said, okay, here, let's get this done. Hopefully we'll get some rain. We got a little bit, not enough, but so the only thing we could do was water it to get it established. Once it's established, once a week, watering is more than enough for this type of grass. But again, it's the establishment of it that makes the difference. So myself and my sister live next door to each other. Address 8918. So if you look at the letters, they're exactly the same because I figured, I just said, okay, somebody's had this problem before. Somebody's had to make this request. So I went online and said, look, there's a bunch of letters. So I just kind of pulled pieces apart and then constructed it to meet our standards. And I didn't know how much detail you guys would want to see or if any of it actually made sense because this is all contractors, all their speak and all their know-it-all. When you have a green thumb and you understand what makes a grass grow and what doesn't, I'm not that good at it. So I trust my landscaper. And this was the best recommendation you could, because what we had in the backyard was really good. It was a different blend, probably about 5 to 10 years old, and it's holding up pretty good. It's not as good as what we just planted, but again, there's no real track record to say that this is going to be the best thing. We planted it. It looks very nice. The only problem is we do have to water it in, and then after that, we can more than meet the restrictions. And that's, I mean, if there's any other questions that I can answer, hopefully I can answer them well. Please go ahead.
Is that good, Dr. Carmichael?
No, sorry. There's no testimony, there's no literature on the blend of grass you want to use. It's not native, apparently. It's a hybrid. I don't know what other, there are native grasses, I know, that will establish a lawn. Buffalo grass is one that will fill in. And I'd like to see a little more definition.
The only problem with
And
buffalo grass.
on what exactly you want to use, literature of some sort or testimony from Master Gardener would be nice. If you can persuade one to, I know one, but you could persuade at least one to show up. So that's all I have right now.
Yes, sir.
Any questions for the homeowner right now?
So you've already planted the lawn?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes.
When was it planted?
Last week.
If you don't mind sharing, what financial cost did you have to put out to put in the yard?
$20K.
Okay, how are you watering it right now?
Pretty much about almost like what I asked for, 3 days a week. Just getting it as wet as I can in the amount of time while the sun's not up. Because once the sun comes up, things begin to fail. So just get it wet, get it soaking wet as quickly as I can and roll it get it down, and it should hold. We've already seen it, it's starting to root already, so we've done well getting it started.
Right. I mean, do you have access or use like a soaker type hose or anything like that? The ordinance says you can use drip. It doesn't really go into very good detail about what that means, but,
Yes.
so you're hand watering, spraying it right now?
Right now, I'm using irrigation because, as you can see, it's a little difficult for me to hand
Yeah,
water. I do the best I can, but it's kind of laughable, but I try.
All right. And you should, there's no reason you would have had to do this, but have you asked anybody, any city staff or anybody else for any help in how to apply for this process?
I guess ignorance is probably the key word.
No, it's not- I wouldn't call it
just
ignorance.
didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I said, okay, it's
Yeah.
got to be done because it's dying and the dirt's starting to go downhill. And I said, nah, we got to do something quick.
Okay. How many weeks did your landscaper say you would need to water it? Three times a week?
He said 2, possibly 3. It would get nice solid, it'd be solid, yeah.
Okay, that's all my questions right now. Thank you.
All right, I think no further questions. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, any discussion items with this one? I think your questions keyed off something in my brain, but I'll let y'all go first unless you want me to go first.
Happy to let you talk a little bit, Mr. Chair.
Okay. As you point out there, the lawn's been down for a week. Even if we did recommend approval for this thing and send it to city council, it'd be several weeks before, another week or two before they would even get the word there. I think it's just a little bit late to need on this case, even if it was approved. Although I kind of, I don't know, I think the undue hardship there, if hand watering is okay and soaker hoses are okay, there's other possibilities to do this, realizing that hand watering is probably not real pleasant and going on there. But those are my comments there. I think it's just even if we did do something here, I think it would be late for what the customer needed.
Looking at the 4 criteria for a variance being granted, this really falls pretty short, and I'm very concerned that, I mean, there isn't a resident in Garden Ridge or the area that isn't struggling with this, and I think this case is unique maybe in the timing and sense of it, but it's really no different than what everybody is experiencing, and on that basis, I don't think it's appropriate.
Any other comments from the right? Nope.
This subject has come up before, and there was talk about trying to come up with new landscape exceptions in there. They're not there now. I am convinced with what the customer has provided that it comes a little closer to meeting the standard of undue hardship, although there are alternatives. But given the physical limitations, I'm a little more, the financial and physical limitations a little more meet the undue hardship part to me. What is not being met to me is that it requires that the relief be the minimum necessary, and that it's specified. So right now, it's just a request to give a variance to allow watering for 3 times a week. It's not time limited in any way. So I would think it would be more appropriate if there were a variance to be something along the lines of you can water 3 times a week for 4 weeks, and there must be some sort of trigger that says when you're going to notify the city to do it. So right now, I don't think it's specific enough, but I'm concerned that we didn't have a meeting last week and the stuff's already been going. So when we talk about timeliness, I don't know how much of it is on the resident per se. So if we had more time, I'd actually recommend tabling this one to get more information. But as is, I don't think it quite meets the criteria. The resident could, as it goes forward to the city council with our recommendation, they could always provide the city council with more information about why and how long that they would need to water for, or clarification on the use of soaker hoses, things like that. There are things that they could do to make this the minimum relief necessary. I am concerned that, as the other commissioners have pointed out, almost everybody in the city is having a similar problem. So opening it up with an open-ended variance would not meet the justice requirement, the substantial justice requirement for the rest of the residents. We'd have everybody in here wanting to do it. So those are my thoughts, but I'm very sympathetic because, like the rest of you, my yard is shot too.
Anything additional on the left?
No, I have to pretty much agree with that. Also, if we were to grant a variance and you have 2 lawns being watered regularly and everybody else has got dirt, unless it's addressed in an ordinance similar to xeriscaping or something along those lines where people understand the use. And again, I think there'd have to be some specificity on the types of vegetation that could be planted and cultivated for your yard, and not just throw any winter rye out there or something. So, and I am sympathetic, and I hope it works.
Commissioner Stone, anything else?
As you commented about time-wise, if he's looking for a 2 or 3 week window, even if it was favorable today, by the time it gets to city council, you'll be past that window, so it's almost a moot point for right now. But then, and again, the same thing, everyone else's yards are suffering, so that sets a bad example.
I do remember now that you mentioned it, that this has come up before, and ultimately it hasn't moved forward because it's hard to specify what. And if I plant a new tree, does that mean I need to get to water my entire yard 3 times a week? And we've run into a whole bunch of issues that before. I do remember those conversations. All right. If there's no further discussion, I think it's time for a motion from anybody.
If you want to reword it, I'll make a motion that we or not deny, but recommend to City Council that this request for variance be denied at this time, or not even at this time, just be denied. But you're more eloquent when it comes to ordinances.
Okay. So the motion is to recommend to City Council that the variance of Stage 2 water restrictions for 8922 Comanche Path, Garden Ridge, Texas be denied. So we have a motion there. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Before we vote, just for discussion, I would suggest that residents that are similarly situated would benefit from not running their irrigation 3 times a week prior to getting a variance approved, because that will undermine their case in front of the city council. And then I would also point out that it may not be moot, because you can do limited watering now and then have a chance to do it later a little bit more, so that perhaps the residents might consider bringing that additional information with them to the city council, because regardless of what our recommendation is, they can still take action. So we would be voting on this, but with the understanding it's based on the information we have right now. There may still be additional information, such as the type of grass and the physical condition of the homeowner and the cost involved, and a more limited request might be beneficial. But I agree with what's been said so far.
Any other discussion on the right? Any other discussion on that? Okay, so we'll go ahead and put it to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So the motion passes to recommend to deny the variance to Stage 2 watering restrictions for 8922 Comanche Path. That brings us to item 2IC. Very similar request also, variance to Stage 2 water restrictions for 8918 Comanche Path, Garden Ridge, Texas. We've already heard from the homeowner that is their neighbor, their sister, and it is the same setup that we have here on this one. So we can either continue discussing or we can go straight to a motion.
I like the earlier suggestion that if the homeowner decides to go to the city council, that they bring more information, I think on grass types, hybrid types, maybe native vegetation, maybe an expert on native vegetations or grasses that would help their case. 'Cause I'm sympathetic, and if they find something that grows, I'll plant it. So.
Thank you, Dr. Carmichael. If there's no other comments, is there a motion? Somebody new?
Well, before we do that, just ask if since a different homeowner, if they have any additional information they want to offer before we vote.
Ma'am? Or get your mic, please.
You know, it was only going to be a couple weeks, and we use very little water in our household as it is, and we're only watering the front yard. We're not watering anything else because the rest of it's doing okay. So we were just doing the front yard. I am doing some watering, but it's really hard because when they built our house, they did not do a good job because they have one faucet way in the backyard and the other one's way on the side. And so there isn't a faucet in the front. So it's really hard to get it out there and get it up to the front. So that's why, you know, we're trying to use irrigation, but trying to do it as minimal as possible. So that's all I want to add.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I think I feel your pain. I think we had the same builder. So.
We've lived here for 15 and a half years, and I mean, this is the first time we've, you know, actually put grass down again. So we waited a long time to do it. So it definitely was all dirt.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's all I have to add.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And go ahead, sir.
Thank you, and I would just encourage that when you present to council that's all very good information. What are my personal limitations? What are the financial costs? What is the area that I'm watering? How limited can I make it? That all helps support the request. So, thank you. So you need a motion?
I do need a motion. Yes, sir.
All right. So that I move that we recommend to City Council that they not approve the request for variance for 8918 Comanche Path with the information presented.
All right, we have a recommendation not to approve the variance to 8918 Comanche Path, Garden Ridge, Texas, as written. Do we have a second?
I think Commissioner Horsberger added the caveat that with the information presented to the Water Commission, I think it leaves it open to the resident to bring additional information to the council meeting.
Indeed. We have a recommendation. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a recommendation and we have a second. Any further discussion on the left? Further discussion on the right?
I just want to thank the residents. That was informative, and I appreciate them actually showing up to present the case, and I wish them the best of luck as they move forward. Thank you.
All right, if there's no...
I would second that.
We have a recommendation and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that recommendation passes. All right, that brings us to item C3, discuss options for increasing AMI portal users and educational outreach. I can't remember, was that Commissioner Pohl or Dr. Carmichael? Which one of y'all was going to discuss that? All right. You're up, sir.
Thank you. Really, my interest in continuing this discussion is to really reach out to the city from prior times we've brought this up and see if any other ideas have come up. I think from the discussion of the earlier variants where literally it was 3 or 4 visits on behalf of the city employees, a lot of time, a lot of effort, several letters, whether there's any way that we can be creative and reach out and really exercise the capabilities of this system. I just have the feeling from that variance that we discussed that there was a communications break, that homeowners don't want water leaking out. I mean, whether they end up getting an adjustment or not, they end up paying a lot more. So that's really my question. I don't particularly have any great ideas myself. You're the folks that see the issues day in and day out and understand the timing, better than the commission does. And so therefore I, so to speak, ask if there's any more thoughts on that, and is there anything more that the commission and the commission present to the city council in any measure to really affect this? I looked at the calculations, and 46% of the 1,698 meters that are installed, only 46% of the residents are logged into the portal. And I understand the legal limitations on that, but what about, what can we do to increase that? But Nancy, maybe I'll start with you there and just round table it.
The city has conducted training sessions, education sessions on the AMI system and the portal. We've provided information at various events. I don't know, I mean, we can continue that. Perhaps that is something that we can put a little bit more effort into and kind of renew some information that we've put out prior. Perhaps we can do that before people start trying to put yards in during the spring, when people seem to be more conscious about, or there's more water usage. Possibly could reconsider another training session. It has been a while, but I wouldn't recommend that until after the first of the year.
A question, do we have contact or do we network formally or informally with any other municipalities that use this system? And if so, have they experienced the same problem, 50% usage?
I don't know that that question has been asked of other municipalities, but there are a lot of cities in this area that are using the same system we are, or something similar. So that could be something we could reach out and see what kind of information they're trying to put out to their residents and what their percentage of participation is.
We did ask that question of the company when we were originally doing this and talking to them about our initial education efforts and everything like that. And I think Councilmember Valdez can probably correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think around 20% was, 20% is what they expected us, and they thought that would be an average percentage of residents that would sign up for this, and that's what they've seen historically. So from that perspective, you look at 46 and it sounds really good, but I get your point. We could do better, perhaps. So.
I can talk with staff and see what we can come up with, and perhaps we can have a few suggestions at an upcoming, next Water Commission meeting. Or let you know where we are at in our discussions about coming up with ideas.
Yeah, I appreciate that it's a long pull, but every time that we look at one of these adjustment things, there's always this long trail of not the right people were, responded, were communicated, lots of water was lost, and it goes against, what we're trying to do here, particularly during a time where we're really critical with our use of water. So, but thank you, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I don't have any other questions on the subject.
Any commissioners? I saw you reaching for the mic. Go for it.
First comment, we could maybe start trying to gather a little bit more data now that we've had this for a little bit of time. So as these leak adjustments come forward, we could kind of capture what's the average gallons used and the average cost that the consumer ends up paying, because leak adjustments don't give you complete relief, so that's still pretty significant. And then the harder part of that is when we have leaks that are caught through the AMI system, we need to somehow capture that too, because what I would see providing to consumers going forward, little inserts in the bill or in the newsletter is, hey, did you know that the average leak costs consumers X amount of dollars? And with the AMI system, you can avoid those costs. And here's, we've had 50 over the last 6 months where they've been found within 24 hours and, things along those lines. I think having some numbers would help. But we're not going to be able to get them up here. I mean, it's going to have to come through the billing system and the staff. So
Just
maybe you could talk about that a little.
put this out for thought is we have a formula for relief and leak adjustment is concept of a bonus if you are signed up in the portal to help alleviate it even further for a period of time. Not making that a proposal, just what you've said gives me some food for thought as to let's lead with candy rather than a stick.
And the other part I'd like to have folks talk about and the staff is the other half of that process. Like even when the consumer doesn't get the notice, we still on our end should be getting notices. So when it goes 2 months without triggering an alert, that kind of concerns me. So having the leak alert's one thing, but what about the excess usage? I mean, do we have a process to kind of go back internally and identify those maybe a little quicker? I'm not asking for an answer right now, but just in discussions, I think that might be something that's worthwhile.
Anything on the left?
Did you have a booth set up at the farmer's market a while back? How did that turn out?
Bearing in mind it was an extremely hot day, I think we would have attracted more people if we had put out dog water bowls. We saw a couple other places do that. So that I have some notes from that I took. But we actually talked to, I think, 4 people, 2 that were Garden Ridge residents. 2 had not signed up on the portal, and we went through an education process with them, and there was good enthusiasm. So there's a lot of interest. It's sort of an aha moment was what my experience was, but the results were feeble, but I think the attendance at the marketplace days were low. In that context, Dr. Carmichael and I, kind of doing a wash-up of that, thought whether there might be other appropriate opportunities for a table at our different other city events where the commission or whatever can staff it. I, for one, would be delighted to do it. It's fun to educate people on this, but that was the result of the market days.
Yeah, we're able to get donations from some of the local plumbing companies of a pressure-reducing valve and backflow prevention. And I think next time, we had them laying on the table, next time we'll need to set them up in sequence. And I think that would maybe draw some more people to, with a visual of some of those items. And we also want to address the pressure relief reduction valve in the system, because Garden Ridge does have a pretty good water pressure, which can affect your plumbing inside your house. So, but it wasn't, I wouldn't call it a wasted day, but it would have been nice to have more participation, and It was very hot, and maybe next time we could tag team with other commissioners.
So can city staff help us out a little bit on some ideas for how we can, what events might be good to target additional residents?
We will look at those things. I believe Stephen had been talking about doing like a water fair. Let me see, let staff talk with our water manager or our water department, city staff, see what we can come up with. We will look at, and how we can readdress or refreshen materials and refresh promoting of the AMI system. And let me get with Stephen and talk about potentially putting on a water fair. And we will try to have some answers concerning all of it to you by the next Water Commission meeting, or at least give you a status on what some of our thoughts are and directions we might be looking at moving in.
Thank you, appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And based on what I've been hearing, I think we should put the vice chair in the homecoming parade, because that had like 2,000 people at it, right?
Nobody wants to
Good
see me.
idea.
The mayor said 2,000, that's all I remember, so. Sorry about that, Mayor. Anything else for item C, number 3, from the group? All right, thank you. Now we are to item 4D, future agenda items, just any topics that we want to add for our next meeting. Any topics on the right? Well, it sounds like we're going to keep that discussing options there, and we'll come back to that and we'll look at that again next month. Is there anything new that we want to add?
That was the only item I would like to have as a continuing discussion of this.
Okay. Nothing from the vice chair? Okay. Anything on the left to add? Okay. Great, that puts us to citizen comment period number 2. If there's any citizens in the audience that would like to come up and speak. All right, give me just a second here. So this is the second citizen comment period. You're not required to sign up. You're limited to a 2-minute period. I'd like for you to state your name and address before your comments begin. Let's see here. Following the guidelines here, direct your comments to the entire commission, not to an individual member nor to the audience. And you're speaking at the allotted time that you'll see on the board there. You mentioned that you have 2 minutes. And I think that's it for the rules. Anything I'm missing off my notes, Nancy? Been a while since we had this. No? Okay. Go ahead, please, Mr. Bates.
Hello, Darren Bates at 20103 Regency Run. Mr. Chair and Commission, thank you for letting me speak. I wanted to bring up a benefit for the city of Garden Ridge that I recognized through a recent effort to relocate my on-site septic facility sprinkler heads. What I found is that the effort was a heavy lift. It took quite a bit. That just because you hire an expert to take care of a layout for you, it took a significant amount of brain power from the resident in order to come up with a product that, from what I saw, made sense and that would also pass Comal County's approval board, if you will. I was unpleasantly surprised about how many roadblocks came up, and I many times thought about giving up. So I also spoke with other Garden Ridge residents who wanted to relocate their sprinkler heads, specifically stating before I asked, I would like to save, when watering my lawn and use the septic spray in order to make that happen. So going through my relocate situation, I noted that I was able to save about 30,000 gallons a year under drought conditions. I do my rain dance, so I anticipate the rains are going to come again, and we're going to get out of this drought reduction. That should go up to about 90,000 gallons a year. What I'm bringing up is the potential savings for other Garden Ridge residents to maybe have the advocacy from the board, Water Commission Board, and/or City Council, maybe the city attorney, to help residents get approval for their aerobic septic system facility sprinkler head relocate so they can make it happen. Because as noted, it takes someone who is going to persevere and has somewhat of a mindset to look into things and do their own research. The engineer and the county don't have the same story on what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other citizens for comments? All right, that brings us to item number 6, adjournment. And we don't need a motion for this anymore, right? Do we still need a motion for this, or can we just adjourn? So I didn't think we needed a motion for this anymore. I thought that was.
Before you
All right.
do, do we need something to add for next time about the appointments of chair and vice chair? Because I didn't see that on here.
Yes, that was not on the agenda. Appointments of chair and vice chair for the next year.
That will automatically be on your next agenda. We saw that that was an oversight yesterday. So we will definitely have that placed on the next agenda.
Got it. All right. With that, this meeting's adjourned at 7:48 PM. Thank you, everyone.